Blog Talk Radio.
Archangels, ghosts, and Bigfoot, oh my. It's just another night for Supernatural Girls. Real stories, real answers to life's biggest supernatural mysteries. And now, for another exciting interview with paranormal experts from this world and others. Here's your host, paranormal researcher Patricia Baker, on the one, the only, Supernatural Girls.
Welcome, everyone, to another exciting episode of Supernatural Girls Radio. I am your host, Patricia Baker, and I'm here with PK tonight. PK, how are you doing in Tucson?
Well, we've got a little bit of rain ongoing here, and telling us to be a little cautious of possible flooded streets and such, but it certainly does nothing to do with what Florida has had. My goodness gracious.
Oh, my gosh. Ah, I know it.
Incredible.
Here we are, safe and sound, and the folks in Florida are really going through it. Category 4, almost to Category 5. I hear the winds are just incredible. They're having tremendous flooding, over 1 million without power so far. And it looks like it's moving very slowly, so that's going to make this even worse, unfortunately. But it looks like they're mobilizing people from all over the country to come in and help and get things cleaned up in the aftermath of this. It's truly a monster storm, isn't it?
It is that. That's for sure. Been paying attention to it. I have my grandsons are down there, and they had to evacuate where they lived, and they're gone to mid-state to figure out they've got a place to stay there. But it's just the idea. How do you handle that type of thing when you have to pack up to interject out of the area, bring everything that you need, and people forget little things like important papers or things of that nature because they're just anxious to get out of the wake of the situation, and they forget about the things that are important that they may need afterwards because they don't know what they're going to come back home to. Or if
well, that's it. Yeah, you just don't. And I guess some people decided not to evacuate, and they're up on their rooftops, and they've been told nobody's coming. You're going to have to wait it out. It was your choice to stay and not evacuate. So, oh boy, it's a tough call, I think, but they were very accurate in their predictions this time. So it's pray for everybody's safety and that they can get things back to normal. But it's not going to be an easy road. So, my goodness, but here we are. We're safe and sound. Very grateful for that.
Well,
I'm in New England.
The nice thing about
it's beautiful here.
We have rain here, but it's for us in Arizona, a little bit of rain goes a long way to make us feel really good.
Yeah.
So that part is great. This will be the last show that we will be doing during the retrograde. So next week when we meet, retrograde will be behind us. Thank God.
Yes.
Anything to do with our communication has certainly been kicking people where they sit.
That's for sure. Now, you said this is going to come to an end on October 3rd, right?
That's right. Uh-huh. And, of course, we'll have a little bit of a shadow period afterwards, but nothing compared to what we've been going through.
Well, I'm ready for it to come to an end.
Quiet time. Yep, I am too, honey.
Yes, October 3rd, here we come. Well, that sounds good. Now, we have had some tremendous guests. We always have tremendous guests on this show. We've been here since 2013, broadcasting every single week. And, I mean, it's been great. And we've got some terrific people coming up. And I just want to mention we have Dr. Richard Gallagher. Now, he was on a few years ago, and he is a Harvard-trained psychiatrist and an exorcist. And, my God, did he have stories to tell. What's going to be interesting is he'll be back October 19th, and he will give us more stories. His book is coming out, and he's going to be on the show. So I'm just so excited to have him back because being a Harvard-trained psychiatrist and dealing with the paranormal. It's like we asked him, how do you tell the difference between somebody who's mentally ill and seeing things and somebody who's possessed and seeing things? And he has a great answer, and I know we're going to get into this discussion again. So one of our stellar guests, he'll be back on the 19th. We've got Maria Shaw coming back with her husband, Joe, at the beginning of October. That's next week already, right? My goodness.
That's right.
So, yeah.
And one thing to think about when we go into next week, we are going into a preview of the coming year. So
I hope it's good.
Pay attention, folks.
I hope it's a good preview, a good trailer to the movie, you know.
It's going to make us stop and think about a lot of things because it deals with spirituality, it deals with learning and teaching, but it also deals with taking a good look at the inner self, our spiritual side. It's going to be very interesting because it's a preview of the coming year.
Yeah, well, I can't wait. I'll be taking notes, but I'm so glad you brought that up so I can pay attention. And, oh, my goodness, it's been a wild ride, but it's been okay. It's been okay, yeah. But we've got a great guest tonight. Now, you and I have been talking about bringing a cryptid expert back on the show. We've had a number of people through the years, but we wanted to bring somebody new, somebody who's a researcher and an author, and Scott Carpenter's name kept coming up as somebody who is a truly authentic person. He has a lot of information to share about DNA, about his own experiences, about other people's experiences, about his support groups for people who have had these experiences. So he is just a wealth of information. And he came so highly recommended to us, we had to get him on the show. So he is here with us tonight. I can't wait. Here we go. I'm going to tell you a little bit about him. He's got an impressive biography. Now, Scott actively researched the Bigfoot phenomenon and other cryptids from 2008 to 2015. And he began researching, now this is a funny one, after making whoop calls on a whim while fishing off the shore of a public recreational area. Now, to his shock and amazement, his half-hearted whoop call got a response in the form of a very agitated, unseen subject coming near the water's edge to investigate. Now, this encounter was a catalyst for Scott to go investigate the area and unwittingly started his research career. Now, Scott is the author of 3 active websites and 6 books on the subject, including the Bigfoot Field Journal, Volumes 1 and 2, The Dog Man, Monsters Are Real, The Nephilim Among Us, Truth Denied, The Sasquatch DNA Study, and his latest release, The Sasquatch Awareness Project. Now, when Scott was actively researching, he investigated areas that included the Great Smoky Mountains National Park and recreational land adjacent or near the park. Now, he's a member of North American Bigfoot Search, and he's participated in the groundbreaking Sasquatch Genome Study, contributing multiple hair and saliva samples, 11 of which were used in the study. Now, his research has been featured on the television show Finding Bigfoot, and more recently, he was featured on the award-winning series by Les Stroud, Survivor Man Bigfoot. Now, instead of talking about him, let's get him on the show. He's fascinating, and he's here with us tonight. Scott Carpenter, welcome to the show.
Hey, guys. I'm trying to stuff my head back into the room now. Thank you. Yeah.
You're worth it.
I know.
Well, you deserve all of this. My God, you've worked hard.
Yeah, my friend Dave Pilates, kind of helped me with that, and I did 3 lines to start with. This has been years ago, and he's like, no, you got to put more. You got to. He said you got to brag on yourself, and I said that's one thing it's hard for me to do, but I finally got it all in the intro, and I really appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
You're so welcome, Scott.
Definitely.
You're so heavily involved in a topic that is very difficult for a lot of people to hear about, talk about, and yet you have come forward in a wonderful way. And we absolutely love the fact that you've come to this realization that other people need support and help if they've had experiences. And we're going to get into that too. So if people have had these experiences and they want to join your group, they're going to learn how to do that. But let's start with you. Now we know about your whoop call, but what happened after that? Tell us how you got more involved with Bigfoot and other cryptids.
Well, I just grabbed a camera and the next weekend just went to the area and hiked around. I mean, I hunted the area, but I'd never, during the summertime. This was during the spring, so. And so I just started literally, made my way to that area where whatever it was, came down. I thought now, or believed pretty heavily it was a Sasquatch. And, I started picking up signs, or when I started looking, I started seeing these odd, signs from, pre-breaks to large impressions to, you could kind of see it looked like a road grader had gone in there. And I'm thinking, nobody on a horseback's going to, ride their horse into this garbage. It's full of briars. It's so thick. And then I had, just in the first month that I started doing this, I had an infrasound experience, and I got a few frames. Like I had apparently walked in on more than one. I was investigating. I saw something like in a cedar tree. Like I saw a black mass in this cedar tree, and I went to investigate. And my cell phone rang, and then I had every intention of investigating. Actually going in there and poking at it or whatever, seeing what it was. And when the phone rang, inexplicably, I had it on camera, but it was my son. I mumbled some things to him and said, I'll call you back. And I just, something wiped my memory or directed me away. I literally turned and walked away. And there's about a 10-minute span where the last thing I remember is the phone ringing. And the next thing I consciously remember, I'm probably 300 or 400 yards away. I've gone back up to the main trail, and I'm walking in the opposite direction. And then I kind of like I was dizzy, and it's like I came out of something. And of course I thought, I'm like, that's strange, And then when I got back home, I thought, well, let's rewind this, because it was the very start when I was walking around. And sure enough, there was 10 minutes of stuff, and then I noticed that in that cedar tree, there was a figure looking back that had 2 eyes and a nose. So that freaked me out. So the next day I went back, and there was all kinds of sign. He had literally just got up in the tree and hugged it, and broke out limbs up to about 12 foot tall, and left a couple footprints. So that kind of that's got me started, and trying to figure out what was going on,
Now, already you've had this mysterious experience where you ended up walking away not having any real memory of it. And what caused that, do you think?
Well, I think now it was infrasound, but at the time I didn't know what. At the time I was totally ignorant. So, I was just, I've learned about 95% of it on the job, just figuring it out. And then, some finally, once I joined North American Bigfoot Search, I finally had some other researchers that, I could bounce things off of. But at the time, I didn't know what had happened. I just wrote it off to, just something weird, one of those weird things. And then, later I learned about infrasound and what it can do to you.
What is infrasound? Can you give us a definition of that? What is that?
Yeah, it's ultra low frequency that's below our ability to hear, and it has different effects on the human body. Many studies have been done. The military uses it for crowd control and as a weapon. It can be used for communication, so you can actually it's a really low vibration, you can literally vibrate someone's eardrum and speak to them or give them a message without speaking audibly, because you can just vibrate the eardrum. Whales use it. Tigers use it to shock prey. At different frequencies, you can make different things happen to people. And there's been multiple studies in England where they, you can anywhere from euphoria that can cause you to hallucinate. It can cause you to lose your memory. If the resonant frequency is a certain, like 10, 11 hertz, it can damage your body. It can literally cause your organs to vibrate and tear and explode. Yeah, so it can be a dangerous weapon, but it can also be used, to manipulate you, and it can cause the fight or flight response. And I've found it, at the right frequencies, they can block or temporarily wipe your memory, or get you in a state where you're suggestive, almost like being hypnotized. And so it has all those. I mean, it's like the one-stop shop for,
a lot of things, it sounds like. Yeah, and so this Bigfoot, it sounds like, used infrasound to get you to get away from him.
Yes, that's pretty much what I think, and they've used it many times on me. And so, and they use it on other, they have many uses for it. Because if you could, sound, and I'm a big Tesla guy, so, and I think that sound and electricity and magnetism are all interchangeable. It's like water, gas, solid, liquid. And so, if you can cause things to resonate, you can use sound, and you can cause the other things to happen. And so they can, in my opinion, they can use that to manipulate, the ether and things around them. So, everybody talks about their ability to cloak. Part of that may rest in their ability to use infrasound and actually control water molecules or other things around them, and cause some sort of cloak. So there's all kinds of, that's a really powerful tool they have. And but the interesting thing I found is not all, I'm probably getting way ahead, but it goes back into the DNA study and how their DNA and I think it's genetic, and some have have the ability and some don't. Some have more of it than others, and so depending on which one you run into, you could one could be an expert at it, and one could only be able to do so much of it. So it's it always depends on the individual Sasquatch you run into and what's going on.
Now, is it your experience that there are many different tribes of Bigfoot?
Yeah. They're just like human beings. They're a human hybrid, and they have genetic diversity just like we do. They have different hair colors, different heights, different sizes. They have common traits, but they have like hair color anywhere from white to gray to red to black to white to blue.
Blue. Oh my
black.
goodness.
Yeah.
Weird.
I captured. I've captured a video of the blue one sneaking up behind
that's something.
And
my.
Yeah. And his skin was like a Caucasian colored skin. So, but their skin color anywhere from jet black to leathery gray to Caucasian to light brown, tan. Looks like tan leather. So, noses. Why they, like their noses. Why most of the time they have the wide, flat nose. The majority of them. Some of them have slender noses. Some of them, most of them have a heavy brow and deep set eyes, but not all. And there's some hybridization still going on with human beings. So sometimes you get some that look really, really human. It's just they're 10 foot tall and covered in hair. And so they're just there's a wide range of genetic diversity within the Sasquatch. And they had, in my studies, I found that they start off, the base is a family group, male and female and children, and then that is tied to a clan, loosely tied to a clan, and then that is usually maybe a larger group, but they keep, kind of in the military, they keep their associations at a smaller level, and so it's a little bit easier to move around, stay hidden, and not interact with human beings. But they have social hierarchies, and they have their own language and can mimic, and so it's it would be, if you could ever get them to talk to you, it would be a very interesting study in anthropology and their culture, but they don't. So we just
it's a very complex world. I mean,
behaviors.
Yeah, you're describing so many different variations within the Bigfoot community, and the fact that they basically break out into smaller groups, but there's a lot of variety here. So there's a lot to learn and keep track of as to who these Bigfoot are. I mean, we've heard stories about Bigfoot who, in the past, long ago, took women and children from some of the tribes. We've heard possibilities that they have kidnapped children while the children were collecting blueberries or huckleberries. That's their thing, huckleberries.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that doesn't sound friendly, and it's certainly for the parents, it's a horrible thing, the family left behind not being able to find their children, if this is something that they've done. So there's some that don't bother, that probably don't want anything to do with us, and are very happy to keep their distance. But there's so much to this whole field.
I found in general they very much treat us like the American Indian did when this colonization started. There was there's three different types of Indians. One type of, or Native American, however politically correct you want to say it, there was one that was friendly and helpful, and did interact and saw value in that. There was another group that just wanted to be left alone. It was kind of neutral. It's like, yeah, okay. And there's all these new people coming in, but we just soon leave them alone. Let's not interact. But we weren't violent or anything towards them. And then there was a third group that saw, anyone other than them less than human, and it was okay to kill them and do whatever you needed to, within reason. And so, and they're very violent. So, and I found the same to be true in the Sasquatch community, whatever you want to call it, in their tribes. And while the violent is not as pronounced, there's a lot less of that than there was, of course, during the colonization of North America. It still exists, and I tell people, and they don't like hearing this, and I'm going to tell the good, the bad, and ugly, because there are those that choose to do good and help people, and there's others that, just like any society, you have criminals, you have good people, and you have the brilliant ones, and you have the dumb ones, and and they're the same way. But with a lot of them, a lot of people don't like hearing this, but through my experience and the experience of others, killing you is on their menu. It's on the choices. When I'm having a conflict with somebody, murdering them is not on my, I'd like to punch them, but if we're having a conflict, but murder's not on the menu. With a Sasquatch,
right?
Trust me, murder or killing you is on the menu. Now he may not do it, and it may be option number 100, but it's on the list, and that helps kind of sober people up to the reality that this is not a game, and these are not lovable caretakers of the forest. Now, that's not to say that some aren't, but as you can't approach it with that storybook. That's my opinion. I don't want to offend anybody, but
no, you're not offending anybody. This makes sense.
Approach it that way.
Definitely.
and that's part of what I preach now is you just have to be careful. You can't. It's, in my opinion, it's not a fun weekend family activity. There's just so much that can go wrong. There's so many unintended consequences. They call it the hitchhiker effect now, and so you have other, issues with that. If you all are in the paranormal, and I say hitchhiker, you know what I'm talking about. If you do ghost hunting or paranormal, you can get something follow you home if you're not careful. And the Sasquatch is no different. And I've had many shocked people give me a phone call or send me an email when the giant handprint shows up on their daughter's window, in the suburb.
Right.
That's the moment they're like, I didn't realize this could happen. Yeah, it can.
Yeah.
So.
No, we're dealing with a completely a different species. They have, I know, human DNA also, but it's a different species. It's a different way of looking at the world, and they have so many abilities that I know you're very familiar with them, but a lot of people don't have a clue as to what the Bigfoot can do.
Exactly.
And I'm not talking about physical strength, just that. There's so many other things.
Oh yeah, there's now they're getting away from. They used to call it the woo, and there was the woo people, which I was one of, and then there was the people that thought they were bipedal ape, but that line's now getting pretty blurred. I mean, most people, anyone who investigates, that does serious investigation or an earnest investigation of the Sasquatch subject or phenomenon, whatever you'll call it, after about a year, you're going to start encountering the unintended consequences, the woo stuff that, it's going to go supernatural, and it's going to go there fast, and it's going to get weird, and then it's going to get strange. And it just, the rabbit hole is you can go as deep as you want to, and, things will start happening that you can't explain, that aren't coincidences, but the Sasquatch is real good about doing something that only you know. They kind of build that rapport with you, and so they'll do something that that it's them, but everybody else will think you're a lunatic, and then they'll communicate with you that way. They're crazy like a fox. They're very smart, very intelligent, and so that's what they'll do. Or there'll be other, usually it starts with other cryptids show up, like the dog man. Like, first you're researching Bigfoot, like I was. You have no interest in dog man. You don't want to see a dog man, and then all of a sudden you have, a eye contact, encounter, and then you have one sneak up behind you, and you get it on film, and then you get several on film, but your intent wasn't to look for these things at all. So, and some people have, even more harrowing experiences with them. And, then that can graduate to orbs, and then that can graduate to poltergeist activity or ghost activity around your house. And then they start visiting your house, and then you see UFOs, and then, then you got dark shadow men in the corner. You wake up one night after a night terror. So, everybody says, well, no, that can't happen. Yeah, it can, and it does, and it did. So that, that.
Did that happen? Did any of that happen? Did any of that happen with you, Scott, as you began your journey?
All of it. Every bit of it.
Oh, okay.
I documented it in my book. Yeah, I'm speaking from experience.
Gosh, what do you think it is then that opens? I mean, you're opening a doorway apparently when you meet a Sasquatch.
Well, now I'm gonna come at this from a Christian worldview, because I'm a Christian, so that's my worldview.
Mm-hmm.
So I tell people, if you want to substitute ghost for spirit or demon, if you want to substitute alien for fallen angel, or if you know what I'm saying, feel free to substitute.
Yeah.
I'm a live and let live guy. We're trying to get to the bottom of it. I don't care if it's an atheist, it gets to the bottom of it. You know what I'm saying? It's just we're all going towards the same goal. But to me, this is all spiritual. It's all spiritual. It's all related, whether it's UFO, Sasquatch, the orbs, spirits, the ghosts. All these things are related, because if you do one, you're going to run into the others. And if they were independent of each other, then if you ghost hunted, you'd never see a Sasquatch. If you Sasquatch, you never see a ghost. If you Dogman, you never see a Sasquatch or never see a ghost. But that's what inevitably happens. And, we all start off, like I have some friends that, and like one friend started off, as a UFO investigator. And he's now experienced Dogman, Sasquatch, and other paranormal activity. Got a friend that was in the Dogman, and they've experienced the others. And so it's all tied together, and you see spiritual principles being played out within, we don't know the rules. Most of the rules we don't know, but what we can learn by trial and error, if you earnestly seek them out, you give them permission to do the same. It doesn't matter if you are ignorant of it. The law is the law, and it's a spiritual law, and, it's a biblical principle with demons and spirits, and it's because you're tacitly giving them the permission. And so, and then you're open that door because, a Sasquatch, unfortunately, may have other paranormal activity attached to it because of its what type of being it is. And so, so it could bring along these other things, and then these other things, there's an opportunity to do some crazy stuff around Scott's house. Let's go, or there, and so,
wow.
It's all, in my humble, it's all tied together, and you can't do, if you do one, you're going to get into the other stuff. And like I said, the UFO people, so the MUFON people, they just abhor that. They just try, they're just nuts as we are, right? Because they're studying UFOs back in the day, but they were the highbrows, and they just used to. As soon as I knew a couple, it used to drive them absolutely crazy. That when they would get they get a UFO report, and, well, I was, abducted, and I looked over, and flying the UFO was this Bigfoot, and they're like, I don't want to hear that, no, but he was.
Oh,
driving
yeah.
it.
Well, it's part and parcel of it.
Yeah, or somebody said, well, this UFO landed and right there in our backyard, and these 3 Bigfoot run out the back, run into the woods. So the poor UFO people are just pulling their hair out, and so
they are.
Or they
oh my goodness.
Or there'd be an abduction scenario going on. The person would be a Christian and call on Jesus, the name of the Lord, and say, Jesus, help me, and the beings look scared, and then they're gone. And of course, they're like, well, with an atheist background, well, that just can't happen. And it just did. They averted they called on the name of Jesus, a spiritual concept, and avoided, being abducted. So you see where this can get in. It gets into the spiritual, it gets into the paranormal.
Very much so. Yes, very much so.
A lot of people get very uncomfortable. They want to. I recently did a video about everybody. Everybody wants to box things off. Well, there's ghosts over here, and they stay in their little box. And I do Dogman. He stays in his little box, and I'm like, no, there's one big box, and they're all dumped into it. And that's what you get into when you start studying it. That's why I said paranormal or cryptid investigator, because I may have been investigating or researching Sasquatch, but everything else came along for the ride. So it was, kind of hard not to. It's kind of hard not to, capture
right
on camera or whatever. You're going to capture them, it's going to happen. So might as well just embrace it, try to figure it out.
Yeah, and also stay alive. I mean, because again, as you mentioned, murder's on the table with Bigfoot. I would imagine the same is true of Dogman. And they have incredible physical strength. They're stealthy. They can come in and out of our reality at will. We are up against it if they don't like us. Yeah.
I personally think there's some sort of restrainer, and the Christians among them, they go, well, we know who that is, but there's something restraining them. Okay, it is. Those are, you have the reports when a Sasquatch gets spotted by a human being that they're hiding and peeking on. The Sasquatch the ones that run off. Most of the time, not always, but usually the Sasquatch is the one that looks scared or surprised, and is getting out of Dodge in many situations. Well, why is that? Why?
Yeah, why?
Why won't they openly communicate with us? Because some do. And when they communicated with me, it's almost like it was a prison camp situation, and they had all communications had to be coded. And they did communicate with me, but it was all coded. It was like the 3-in-1 pattern. They started doing that. Like I had a feeding station, and I had, at first I thought they were done maybe, so I was doing wrong and stuff, and I wasn't very smart, and I'm sure they were amused by me, but so like I would lay 4 or 5 rocks out on an old piece of broken marble, and out at the feeding station the feeding station is the place where I'd hang food out for them and put the cameras up, hoping to get the picture. But and what they would do is they would, for weeks they would take 3 stones and push them together, scoop one off by itself, and then get the rest of them off there. So there's always this 3-in-1 pattern, 3-in-1, 3-in-1. So and other people have seen a similar pattern, but I knew this 3-in-1 pattern. So fast forward, 18 months, and they're coming to the house now, stealing dog food, slapping the side of the house, finding footprints in the backyard, finding handprints on the side of the house, et cetera. And I put a whole bunch of candy bars. They will not do anything that overtly shows their presence. So like they'll open the dog food tub, eat some dog food, smooth it back out, and close the tub. But if you let the apple out, or if I let the candy bar out, they wouldn't touch it. They just wouldn't do it.
Really?
That would be for overt, action that I could tie to them. But so I lay out, I don't know, half a dozen. It was right after Halloween, so I had the candy running out my panty. And so I laid out, a bunch of Snickers bars and whatever, and I don't know, about 10 of them. And this is no joke. The next morning I went out, and there was 3 pushed together, 1 by itself, and the rest of them were thrown out in the yard. So obviously that was we were here. But if anybody else would have seen that, well, that's just a squirrel, that's Rocky the raccoon.
Right.
Right.
But it's so interesting that they didn't eat them, because I've heard, maybe this isn't true, or maybe this isn't true about this particular Bigfoot group, but I've heard that they really like sweet stuff, pastries, things like that. Do. They like it.
Now,
they do. Okay.
At the feeding station out in the woods, they would eat the candy bars. They wouldn't at my house.
Okay.
And they would take the Snickers bars and they would just bite it. Like, so you have a whole Snicker bar, they wouldn't unwrap it, they'd bite it in the middle. Start chewing
for heaven's sakes.
And use and in their mouth they would just pull the wrapper off and spit the wrapper on the ground.
Okay.
And then push the other side in their mouth and throw it down. That's how they ate candy bars. And they like M&Ms. This group over here liked M&Ms, so I would put in M&Ms in one of those little plastic sandwich things, not a bag, but it actually had a top on it, and so it's a little bit tougher. And they would take the top off, eat everything, put the top back on. They do that a lot. A lot of people do that with peanut butter. I never did do that with peanut butter because why did I do that? All the ants kept getting in it, and it was just a mess. But I've had friends and other researchers would literally take a peanut butter with the top on, set it to them, go back next week, the top's back on the peanut butter, but the peanut butter jar has been licked dry. I mean, they would ramming their tongue in there and lick it and getting all the peanut butter out, but then putting the lid back on tight. And that's how I got my saliva samples, was off the wrappers.
Oh, okay.
But they were very smart. Like they discovered, so I put I was dumb or just ignorant. So I would put the food out, and I'd take a couple, and back then trail cameras they're crap now, but they were really crap back then. And all I could afford was they were awful. But if one would have sat down and posed, it would have everybody been, it's a blow-up squatch. What are you going to do?
Right.
So what they would do, they knew that the sensor, a passive infrared sensor is looking for a change in the infrared signature. So it's looking for a change, not particularly something hot or something cold. So if something moves in front of it, there's a change, right? There's a change in the temperature, the signature. So what they would do is, I don't know what they do. They set a rock in front of it or stand in front of it. So what had happened is, when they first would come up, they'd set it off, and you would see, you wouldn't see anything but the candy bars and everything be there. It'd be 2 o'clock in the morning, okay? And then the next one, and then the next one, 30 seconds later, it was every 30 seconds. The next one would be a complete whiteout. In other words, they literally they knew if they stood right in front of the camera, it's just going to be a whiteout. And then 10, 15 minutes would elapse, and when they'd move away from the camera, it would set it off again. So you'd have it just looked like something swiping in front of the camera. And then, lo and behold, in that little video, all the candy would be gone. And they did that.
Oh my!
Right. Yeah, and so that's when I started getting the sneaky suspicion. I don't think these are dumb apes.
Far from it. No, they're pretty sneaky.
I don't.
Yeah, that's so funny.
And they can locate technology. They could locate those cameras. You can't hide them. You can't hide any electronics from them. I don't know where they use. I always thought that they could use the infrasound, just like a echolocator. They could make infrasound, and it would cause the parts to vibrate, and they could hear it. So they could get the frequency. But I mean, it doesn't matter. Rich Gameau, a friend of mine who was a part of the Olympic project, they had money, and they put those Reconics, back then they were like $800 to $1,000 a piece, and they hide those things in the Olympic Mountain area. And while they did get a few things, I mean, they would make fake rocks, they'd make fake stumps, they'd make limbs. I mean, they would hide these things and all kinds of stuff, and the Sasquatch would find them, mess with them, lick them, stand to the side, stick an eye in it. So
wow.
You can't hide. They can see it. They can, number one, when the thing goes off, they can see the infrared. They can see it. They can see in the infrared spectrum.
Right.
So it looks like a spotlight going off in the woods when the infrared goes off. If you ever want to get a ooh moment, take a regular game camera and then get you another camera that has infrared. It can see in the infrared. It's got an infrared camera. And I've done it before. And have the camera rolling and set off the camera. For an infrared, that infrared it's like a spotlight, bright light. It's unbelievable how bright and how you can see it. It's like a a lighthouse bright. It's unbelievably bright. So no wonder they they
know where they are.
Not only the fact so there's just no way you can put one up full. And let me say that.
Well, now when you've been out in the mountains, and have you ever come like truly face to face with a Sasquatch where it's like standing in front of you, close to you?
Let's see. I had not close. I had one about 150 yards away on top of the ridge, and it was doing a sidestep trying to. It wanted me to see it, but once I figured out what it was, now we were that far away. I mean, we were looking eye to eye, I guess. I mean, I was looking at him, he was looking at me. But and then when I threw the camera up, he went into the squat position. Then there was a little one at the research area. There's a research area. I don't care if people go there. Just be careful. I've had people chased out of there before, but it's called Baker's Creek, and it's about 1,500 acre recreation area, and that's where a lot of activity happened. And I had there was a Sasquatch assigned to follow me, and so when I'd pull in the parking lot, it would usually give me some sort of tail, snap a limb or something, and then it would stay. When it first started going, it was very quiet, and every now and then I thought I might be being followed. And then as, you know, a couple of years into it, you know, the Sasquatch was getting bored with this, and so it was its job to follow me and keep an eye on me. It didn't really care anymore. And it would literally just walk like you and I would walk through the woods. And so I would just hear it, and I'd be walking. I could hear it walking. I'd stop. It'd stop. And I come to find out it was like a teenager. It was, you know, not a very large one, but one. I'd been, I don't know, I was probably early 2000s, and was getting kind of burnt out, and so deer season, and I thought, you know, you just go hunt, and so I had my camera in my pocket, I had a tree stand on my back, my bow. I got a little bit of a late start. The sun had already come up, and I was walking out to my stand, and I started down a hill. You know, I was walking out an pipeline, and so it's got a road in the middle of it, and the grass had grown up probably 5 or 6 feet tall. And I was going down the hill, and I got the creeps. You know, I got the gut feeling. The hair started raising on the back of my neck. I knew it was back there. I knew I was being watched. And so I turned around, and at first I was looking back up the hill. I couldn't see anything. And then this black dome of a head just started rising up real slow out of the grass. And it got up to where its nose, and you know, I could see like the top of the top lip, the nose, its eyes, and it was just staring. It was just looking at me, and I was looking at it. And I just got the impression it was a female. It could have been a male. I don't know. I just got the, and so I'm staring at it. It's staring at me. So we're just sitting there. I've got the camera in the pocket. And I'm like, no, I'm just going to experience this. And so I just it looks at me, and I'm looking at it. So about a minute passes. I mean, these things can stand, you know, you hear about people not moving a muscle. No, you don't understand.
Right.
These things don't move a muscle. Didn't blink. Nothing. I mean, I couldn't believe it's hard to believe how still they can stand and not blink if they don't want to. And so no blinking, just staring at me. And then, and this has happened more than once, I started to say, I was going to say something like, well, hello. And I didn't get the words out. It was like it knew I was going to speak. And at the moment I started to say hello, it turned to the right. And so if the road's in the center, it's on the right side of the road. It turned, jumped the road. I'd say the road was 8 to 12 feet. With two bounds, it jumped the road. I saw it full body, and then it took it one more bound into the woods. It was actually a horse trail, and went up that trail. And I got to see it. It's probably 6.5 foot tall, 40 pounds, kind of skinny. You know, it literally looked like the definition of a juvenile, what you call juvenile. You know, jet black hair, jet black skin, and that's pretty much the one I.
Yeah, the closest encounter you've had.
Yeah, that's the closest.
Yeah, because I've heard stories. I used to study with a medicine woman, and she talked about going to a place where she knew the Bigfoot were, and some of her students wanted to go. So she would take them, and as soon as her students would see those big shapes coming, they'd pass out. Mm-hmm. They couldn't take it. You know, there was something that just triggered in their brains, and so, you know, she'd go back the next year, and the same thing would happen. Finally, she said, "Forget you people. I am not doing this anymore. If you can't stay, you know, conscious." And they couldn't. Yeah. They could not for whatever reason. I don't know, but maybe it just triggered something.
Cognitive dissonance. You know, it's a real thing, and some people, you know, it's just there are some things that people just can't believe. It just so conflicts with their worldview that they literally go into vapor lock in their brain. They have you know, like a mini breakdown. And they just refuse. They just literally shut off.
Right, and with big shapes like them, these things, a lot of them are huge, and they're dark. You know, so there's something about that, I think, that can set off an alarm in the unconscious for some people. But now now you've been involved with the DNA study, which is fascinating. Where are these things from? I mean, tell us about the combination of DNA that you guys discovered.
Okay. All right. Well, and I'm no DNA expert, but I came one to write that crazy book. But and to understand what was going on, I didn't really want to be one. But so you've got a couple things going on with DNA. With the DNA, you have mitochondrial, and you have nuclear. The mitochondrial DNA comes from the female, the mother. It's the mother's lineage, and it's what's passed on. And the nuclear DNA comes from the father. So it's actually the maternal lineage, that really carries things. That's probably why the Native Americans, it all goes to the woman, because the woman is carrying the base all the way through. In other words, that's where technically they say they could go all the way back to Eve, right? Because the mitochondrial is passed forward. And the father is contributing the nuclear DNA, and the two are mixed in the nucleus of the cell, and voila. And so you get a baby. So when they did the study, they found what they started finding is, and it kind of, I wouldn't say by accident, but they had to do a double take, because throughout the years, if you've been involved or know anything about Bigfoot research, like when they first started having DNA tests back in the 80s, someone would watch a Sasquatch jump a fence, and he'd hang his leg on the fence, and there'd be some hair. And so they'd go get the hair, and they'd send it in. This Sasquatch hair. And the lab would run it, and they would, with hair, all you can get is the mitochondrial. So the mitochondrial come back, no, it's human, must be contaminated. We'll repeat that about 300 times between 1980 and about 2005. I mean, literally.
Okay.
So it became obvious.
It was redundant. Yeah.
Maybe they got mitochondrial DNA, which they can't be because they're about to be late, and so that's where that went for years. Well, when the study started, they had confirmed 100% of the Sasquatch. We had an eyewitness, watch it, leave the hair sample, collected by a police officer, handed, though you don't need all the chain of custody and all that. It had all the chain of custody. It had all the, the gloves on, and in the evidence bag where there's no contamination. And when you really study it, that's bogus too, because you wash the hair samples and you remove any contamination. If you get contamination, you got a dirty lab and a poor lab. You need to go after the lab, not the person that gave the sample. But so they were able to get this, and when they ran that hair, it came back human mitochondria. Period. End of sentence. So they're like, that's what we're going with, because that's what it is. So they started, so they got their hair samples and all that, and so consistently, all the hair samples came back with the mitochondrial human. The mother's lineage is human. That's the baseline for the Sasquatch, the human female. Now, where the things got strange, weird, and off the charts is the nuclear side. So they had 3 samples that had enough. Like one of them was flesh, one of them was blood, and one of them, I think 2 of them were blood, actually. Yeah, 2 blood, 1 flesh. So they had enough. You got to have a lot of nuclear DNA. So they had plenty of nuclear DNA to do the test, and they got a full genome, 3 gigabytes worth of data. And so in the scientific world or in the DNA world, there's a place called GenBank. And it's just a interactive online database. And scientists of all ilks, biologists, when they have a species, human beings, if you sign the paperwork, you can put your DNA in this database. So it's got the DNA of all, I can't even remember how many trillions of species. Okay, it's a lot. It's basically every living thing on the planet that they could have a sequence for it's in there. So what you do, let's say I'm a scientist and I'm running around the Amazon and I see a new frog and I think, look, that's never been discovered before. I got a new species of frog. So you capture the said frog, you take a blood sample, you send it off. They come back with your DNA results, and DNA is a computer code, and it's 4-bit computer code based on 4 bits, and so you can compare it. So there's basically there's a search engine called the BLAST search engine, BLAST, It resides on, so the scientist on his local computer can take that data that the lab gave him. They give him a file that's got the sequences, and he can compare it with his computer. He compares it to the database, and then GenBank database, and then it runs through there and it says, we found a match. You didn't find a new species. This is, blocky. Or if it comes back and say no match, then you write your scientific paper, you put your DNA and you put your blast results, and you say, I have discovered a new trawl. That's how it all works. Except the problem was when they did the blast on the Sasquatch DNA, it didn't match anything. Nada. And
nothing.
So that's nothing. Still hasn't matched anything. But here's the interesting thing. The 3 nuclear DNA samples from 3 Sasquatch, from one from Washington State, I think Florida, and Texas. No, Kentucky and Texas. The nuclear DNA matched each other. So we have a unique species.
Okay.
You have a unique species, but it's not GenBank. And the naysayers said, that's impossible. You don't have hybridization. And then 2 years later, Journal Nature came out with a paper on hybridization with the Neanderthals, and they actually found a human being with unknown nuclear DNA in a cave in France. And so, then the whole thing of the paper was hybridization. The only difference between that human being and what Melvin and the other scientists did is that happened to have hair covered and wasn't 8 foot tall. That was the only difference.
No.
It's almost the exact same study. So that I'm trying to
the paternal side.
Understandable.
Yeah. So the paternal side is unknown. So
That's
we don't know what this was bred with. This was a female Earth human bred with that DNA mixed with something unknown.
And somewhere around 15,000 years.
Do you have a
guess
of?
Species. Well, my
so
guess is, or you want my theory?
Yes.
My theory is they're Nephilim. They're Nephilim descendants. Now I got to go into.
Okay, so the Nephilim are related. They're involved in this. Okay. That makes sense.
Because of the DNA and the angelic-like abilities that the Sasquatch have. That's how I made the connection. And they're giants, and there were hairy giants known to be in the promised land, blah, 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 blah. 6 fingers, 6 toes. There's a lot of things, but basically, and this is I got to go fast. So a Nephilim, basically, for the flood, the angels failed. They wanted to have children, which was forbidden. They did it anyway, and they left their heavenly estate, became less than angels in certain ways so they could copulate. They had children, and these offspring were the giants, the men of mighty men of old. That was generation 1, and then that generation started having others, and hybrids, et cetera, and then after the flood, you still had the Nephilim. They were in the promised land, and but they were basically they were human hybrids. You had a human female and a fallen angel, and then you would have, and then those would interbreed, and the angels did all kinds of. If you read Enoch, the fallen angels did all kinds of evil. They directly bred with animals, which created these syngic hybrids, and then they also took humans and they taught human beings the blending of species. But where we're at now with the CRISPR technology, and most likely probably since right after World War II, we have been crossing humans with animals just secretly.
Yeah, that is really something.
Yeah, well, the angels were teaching that before the flood. So everybody was running around crossing whatever they wanted to cross. But you had a nasty mess in the DNA pool. It was just all correct. And that was the whole idea, because from biblical speaking, in the garden, God announced to Satan, after the fall, you will bruise his heel and he will bruise your head. So God announced there's a war started. It's a seed war, genetic war. You're going to have offspring, and I'm going to have offspring. The Savior, of the world's coming through my side, and He's going to terminate you, basically. And so Satan's got to think. Satan's thinking, okay, strategically, I've got to, he's coming through the human line. God's creation. I've got to corrupt that. And so he went to work corrupting it. And so, through so what I think happened was when the children of Israel went into possess the Holy Land, and they started, warring with these tribes. There were Nephilim there. There were giants there. There were long necks. There were blind men, things with lion heads and human bodies. But God, gave them the supernatural ability to overcome. So if you're a 30-foot giant and a 5'8" man that weighs 140 pounds is killing your kin, you figure out real fast, this is God, and we're not winning. And so they fight.
Right.
And, that's where you get the giants. They went to England. They went over to Tartaria. They came across, South America. The red-headed giant came to North America. So the Native Americans talk about, the red-headed giants with 6 fingers and 6 toes that could, grab a buffalo up and snap a leg off and eat it. So my theory is that happened, and then about the time of Christ, you saw all these Nephilim strangely die off or disappear or go into hiding. And so it wasn't as mainstream as it used to be. And my theory is the Sasquatch were probably some tribe or set of tribes of these Nephilim. And instead of they saw all the other tribes, for some reason the Indians are killing them now, and that's weird. And oops, a hole in the ground opened up over here and killed all those. And so they kind of got the word that you're going underground, and so they hit the woods, and they basically went into hiding.
Right.
I can't say the word, just living for their food, and probably started generating hair because even a human being, in certain circumstances, proteins will turn on and off and cause hair growth, etc. So, if their DNA is strange and funky, there's no reason why they couldn't grow hair to better cope with living in the wilderness.
I mean, it seems like the way the Bigfoot are arranged in their little families and communities, it doesn't seem like they necessarily take orders from anybody. They're very independent. I don't get the feeling that they have anybody to answer to. So this is very different. Yeah, it's a very different kind of energy.
I think they do police each other, and they have their rules. And, but at the end of the day, when one goes rogue, there's nothing going to stop him unless the others decide to take care of it. And sometimes I think that's just because of necessity. Like, look, we got this one out here. He's killing a bunch of cows, and he raped a girl, and he's done all this, and, he's going to get us found out. And then they're going to come in here and kill us all. And so, the group as a whole will go in and take that Sasquatch out. I think that's how it works. I think that's really how their justice system works. It's your behavior is endangering our community as a whole. And once these humans find out we exist, they're coming in here and they're coming to kill us, and they will. Because when they come they come in mass,
there's no stopping them. And also, it's a strange community of Bigfoot hunters. I mean, you see people that call themselves hunters, and there are some people that claim to have shot and killed a Bigfoot. Now, what is your take on that? Is that just baloney, or what is that?
No, I think some people have. Some of them, they're hard to shoot and kill, but they can be. They're not impervious. And like I said, you've got different. Genetically, you have some with more angelic, more to the supernatural side, and those more, I would say, watered down genetics. The more they've crossed with human beings over the centuries, it starts cutting them down. It starts removing those abilities. while they're still giants and still real strong, they start losing a lot of these abilities. And one of the abilities I know they have, I heard people report it, is they have a very rapid healing. I mean, like minutes. Bullet wounds will heal within minutes. But that's not all of them. Some of them have been shot, usually multiple times with a large caliber, but they've been shot enough to, they killed them. But I've not, how many? I mean, there's, I can think of about a handful. Now, I do know, not to chase too many rabbits, I do know that the federal government, the military, has units that hunt the rogue ones, and when they get off the reservation, they go get them and kill them. And it's just, that's the way it is. We've had two different family members, one from North Carolina and one from Texas, have a deathbed confession situation about 10 years apart. The fathers were Green Beret Special Forces in the units that operated inside the United States, and their jobs were, one of their jobs, not just, but one of their jobs, they specialized in taking out rogue groups of Sasquatch, usually when they went cannibalistic. And they had the technology and the firepower to do it. So they had, one of them reported they were casualties. In other words, we didn't go in there and, they didn't come out unscathed. They killed people. They killed. Mm-hmm. And the scenario that was given to me by the North Carolina people was this. It's like in a little town in Maine, in this little village up there, people go missing, start going missing. So the local sheriff starts investigating. Local sheriff, finds they all go missing in this one section of woods. They start investigating the dogs, and they find a pile of bones. In other words, it's obvious that people have been killing and cannibalizing human beings. So, of course, the first thing they do, they call the FBI. The FBI comes in because they're like, we can't handle this. We got a serial killer that's eating people. We got Jeffrey Dahmer up here. So they come up, the FBI look around, kind of figure out what's going on, and they know what's going on. So the protocol says they make another phone call to the military to deploy. And then they come in with the infrared, the FLIRs, the helicopters, and they can't hide from that. You can cloak, but they can't hide from their infrared signature. No one can. Not even a cloak hide that, unless you've got some sort of insulation. So basically, they hunt them down and kill them all, and then they body bag them and take them out. And so and I've had two people tell me that. So that's, how they deal. That's how the U.S. government deals with the ones that go rogue. Now, real fast, I want to go backtrack. You asked me about where they're from.
Right.
From the mitochondrial DNA, people have haplogroups. People have done their DNA test, and gotten their lineage back. Well, they use your haplogroup to figure out what part of the world you're from. And
right.
So most of this is interesting. Most of the Sasquatch in the study that they could get, that they got the haplogroup from, were places like Syria, Asia, Eastern Europe, Southwest Asia, the Iberian Peninsula, the Arabian Peninsula, Cyprus, Egypt, Iraq, Iran, Israel, Jordan, Lebanon, Palestine, Syria, and Turkey. Sounds like the Middle East to me.
Yes, it does.
They only had two that came from North America, and both those haplogroups came out of Canada. The rest of them either came from Eastern Europe, Central Asia, or the Middle East.
The Middle East.
So that's where your Sasquatch female came from. Which, if you go with my theory, they got run out, and then to the local areas, and then they came over. So they've already proven they were mining copper over here thousands of years ago, way before they wanted to admit there were people here.
Right.
Crazy.
There's so much to take in. You're again giving us so much great information, Scott. This is amazing. But there is a connection, and you mentioned the MUFON people don't like to hear about this, but there is a connection apparently between some Sasquatch and UFOs. What's your thought on that?
Since I think it's all related, and I think fallen angels, the beings on those UFOs are either are actual fallen angels themselves or some sort of genetically engineered biological suit for the demons, some sort of, entity they've created. It ties right in. Because if you got the Sasquatches, the Nephilim descendant, which the fallen angels created, you got the UFO thing going on, you got a breeding program. I'm sure you've had people on talk about the alien breeding program trying to make hybrids. And they're trying to make hybrids look just like human. They're trying to make their hybrids look just like human beings. They're not trying to make something with a lion head and a human body. They're trying to make a substitute for a human. And so they've got the breeding program going on with both of those entities, the Sasquatch and your typical gray or whatever the alien is, basically the same thing. They're a human hybrid, and they're both they got up the pyramid. They both got fallen angel and satanic controllers. That's the way I look at it. So that's how they all relate, and that's why you can have a Sasquatch driving a UFO.
Well, as you mentioned, people have seen UFOs land and then 3 Bigfoot get out, so they're definitely being transported at times by these ships.
Yeah. I'm sure, have you ever had Linda Godfrey on your show? Sure you have.
No.
You know what I'm talking about, Linda Godfrey? Linda Godfrey,
yes.
The Dogman lady, the Beast of Blood
yes.
Road.
Yes.
So she wrote, they did a paranormal show, a special, where they had that family that got surrounded by a dog man and terrorized for a 24-hour period. And before the dog men showed up, the family reported, in Pennsylvania, I think they were in a rural area. They were sitting on the front porch. These strange UFO light came across went across the field out in front of their house, went off into the woods and sat down, like something landed. And the husband got the feeling, he says, we need to go in the house now. And literally they got in the house and those things showed up. So there was the, inference that these things were on something and got let out. So I found that interesting. So yeah, there's
yes.
All this craziness ties to that. And so it's like I said, go ahead.
You encountered Dogman as well, and it seems like that's a whole different thing from Bigfoot. So what are some of the differences that you know about?
The Dogman is more canine. Now, Dr. Ketchum Melba, she's got one genome. She got partial one from me and Mary Greengager samples that were Dogman, and they have mitochondrial DNA. There is, on the nuclear side, there's canine, human. I mean, it is definitely a genetically engineered being of some sort. It's been cooked. Whether it was done a few thousand years ago in their own species or even sooner. A lot of people think there's like what was created several thousand years ago and became racist and worked their way up, and then there's others that are a newer process that people are doing, whether it's fallen angels or whether it's governments or whatever. But yeah, they're different. I made eye contact with one. It was totally different. I mean, I made eye contact with a Sasquatch, and for lack of a better word, there was an intelligence there. The eyes had a soul behind it. Okay, there was a sentient being there. And I made eye contact with the dog man. There was nothing. It's like I was looking at a picture.
Oh.
I mean, I got nothing from this thing. Nothing. Nothing. No. The only time I got scared was, I don't know if I got time to tell it, but long story short, Dave Plotty, things I do for days sometimes. So this was back when the DNA study, we were full board Sasquatch DNA, and it was taboo to talk about the dog man. Back then that was not popular, and the DNA study was already being attacked from all sides. And they thought, Lord.
Right.
And so, I got a video of one, which they said, well, that's great, but it's a dog, man, we can't use it. Because they'll think we're nuts. I said, but I don't care. But Dave's like, well, but for future studies, it'd be great if you go out and see if you could get some hair samples. So me, my head's starting to think I can't breathe. I think it's a fine thing to go out there and hang bait for them and put up hair traps. And I got what I wished for. And so I put out some stuff. I put out some bacon and in a jar, and I put out some hot dogs, and set my hair traps up to capture hair if they try to reach and get it. And so I'm walking out of the area, and it's during one of those years. The year was a cicada year, and it was so loud you couldn't hear yourself think. I mean, it was just deafening. That's constantly. And so, but as I was walking out, I saw movement to my right. Like this, I saw it, and I looked over, and I caught the last second of this thing, Dogman, had leaped up and hung himself on the side of the tree. What I mean that is, like, this area had really thick undergrowth, and it was about to my chin. I'm 6'3", and it was all I could do to see it. I could just barely see over it. So apparently this thing couldn't see over it either. And so he jumped up on the side of the tree, and I got the last thing. I saw his arms. I saw him hang his claws in, and then he leaned back out from the tree. So you can imagine you facing the tree, you put your hands on the side of the tree, and then lean back and put your head over your right shoulder. And so I could see him from about the waist up, and he was doing that. And so I'm like, first I'm just trying to figure this out. Brain's trying to put two and two together.
Yeah.
And then when I realize what I'm looking at, I get my camera, and I've got footage of this. It's not great footage because though it's not very far away. When you use a camera, it makes it look like 600 miles away. It makes it look like
exactly.
It's a doll's head. It's awful how the cameras do. But anyway, so I'm trying to get a video of this, and it's hard. And I'm getting decent video. It's not perfect. It's decent. It's a dog squad. It's a dog blob or whatever. But I'm getting it's like, so it's not really. And they do this thing where they don't look at you, but they look in your direction. So they're looking at you with the peripheral vision. So like if you were in a 90-degree angle from me, I look at a 45. And so I can see you out the corner of my eye, but I'm not looking at you. They're very keen. The Sasquatch same way, very keen on eye contact. I've seen Sasquatch close their eyes, not to make eye contact, because then you'll recognize you're being watched. So they're very, very cognizant of that. So this thing's like at a 45-degree angle. And as I'm zooming in and out, I start talking to myself, and I'm like, you idiot. Do you not realize what's on the side of that tree? And at that moment, that's when I got scared. I was just so full of adrenaline and everything, trying to get a picture of it, a good video of it. And then it hit me what was going on. And so I had a sidearm, and I got the sidearm out. And I don't carry one in the chamber. I know everybody says, well, you might as well just use it as a club. But I did jack one in. It's a semi-automatic, so I popped one in. And when I did, it made, if you've ever cocked any kind of automatic weapon, semi-automatic, you pull back and you let go.
Yeah.
Loud
Makes
clang.
a nice noise.
Well, when that clang hit, he went from 45-degree angle to right at me. And his ears, which were static, they weren't moving. They just like a dog, his ears turned, and he looked right at me. And I'm like, oh crap! But I don't say. And so I'm standing there, and he's staring, and that's where I was saying those eyes. I mean, we were looking at each other in the eye, but I wasn't getting anything from him. I wasn't getting hate. I wasn't getting love. I wasn't getting anything, and that was creeping me out. I mean, so almost like looking at a robot, like Terminator. You're looking at something that's not really technically alive, but it's doing stuff. And so that's what was scary, is the fact that you just didn't have nothing. There was nothing there. So I'm like looking at it, and it's looking at me, and I'm just realized I've screwed the pooch here. And I'm trying to figure out, I literally start running a scenario through my head. So if it jumps off that tree and runs at me, I just need to pull the gun and just squeeze in a mask and empty it. If it goes on all fours on the ground, I need to go to one knee and shoot straight at it. Because if you're standing up and you're shooting at something on the ground, you'll shoot behind it. So if you ever got anybody that ever hunts or has a bear charge or a wild animal charge, you go down on one knee, and then you're shooting straight at it, and you can aim it at the head, and you got a lot better chance of hitting it. So I'm literally running these are in my mind. I'm running these in my head, but then there's a minute. I don't know how long passed. It seemed like 6 years. Probably 45 seconds to a minute passes, and it doesn't come off the tree. I'm ready. I'm thinking this is happening. This is going down. They're going to find Scott or not find Scott forever. And
oh boy.
So I kind of I literally have to talk to myself and tell myself, see, move. He's not coming. He's not going to move. And so I backed out. I started back towards it. Almost fell a couple of times because it's falling trees and everything. And it was like as I was moving out, he was watching. I had his full attention. He's just watching me. So I look back up. He's watching. And then I finally got far enough away because you don't run. That's the worst thing you can do. So I finally got where I couldn't see him anymore, and I turned and started walking fast. And the scary thing was my wife at the time had dropped me off to do all this stuff, and then was going to come back in a couple of hours and pick me up. And there was a nearby campground, and she'd gone there to chill out with some friends. And then she was going to pick me up, and we were going to go back and spend the night. And we couldn't get cell phone service. I could not get her on the phone. I actually called David Pilates. I called David Pilates on the phone, and he's like, "What in the world's wrong with you?" I said, "If you don't hear me call, if I don't call you back in 30 minutes, I'm dead. And here's where I'm at. And you need to call the police."
Oh my God!
And I said, "Here," and I told him, "Here's what." And real quickly, I said, "I've seen a dog man, and the son of a gun is after me." And I said, "It's all your fault."
Really, that's his idea, right? Get me those samples, Scott.
Yeah,
just think about this.
He's in Colorado. And the thing about it is, he's in Colorado. There's nothing he can do. But I said, well, someone's going to know what happened to me, and you're going to be it. And so,
that's funny.
And so it gave me the rural escort all the way out. Basically, it followed me, and it loudly followed me, and never did see it again. But it cornered me, and I literally walked out. There was like a access road to the area, and it's paved. And so I'm walking on this access road, pistol in hand, still in my hand, locked and loaded. And because I thought to myself, I don't know where, my wife is, but I can't get a hold of her. I've got to get to, people. I got to get out of here. And so she saw where I called her a bunch of times, so she just come on. And so I see we had a Jeep at the time. The Jeep's coming down the road. I'm walking up the road. I haven't got to the main road yet. And thank God nobody passed me, but I've got the gun in hand, and you can tell by what I look like that something was wrong. And I threw my camera and backpack in the back, got in the passenger seat, and I said, "Just go." And she knew better. She knew something was bad wrong. And so we got up the road. We got about 3 or 4 miles away, and we pulled in. She pulled into a little gas station, and I'm sitting there, and I've got like a white knuckle grip on that gun. And she's like, "I think, is that gun loaded?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "You think we can unload it now that we're at the filling station?" I said, I looked around before I answered that question. I said, "Yeah, I think we're all right." So that's my dog. That's the dog.
Wow, that's quite a story.
And the best dog man footage I got, I didn't even know that the crazy thing was behind me. It came up behind me, and I've got like 15 or 20 seconds of very close video where it literally had its head behind me, watching me, and then I turned my shoulders and it ducked down, and it had this little gray entity on its shoulder talking to it in its ear. It's the craziest thing. And so, but I didn't see that one. I just got it on video.
Oh my goodness!
That's the only dog man I've ever seen. I've got some more on. There's a whole bunch of them that live down there, unfortunately. And
now,
I've got a couple
do you
different
have
ones
these
I'm
on
doing.
your website?
Yes. That website,
great.
the dog, or, that blog site, website, Dogman Are Real. Monsters
Yes.
Are Real. That's
where it is? Okay,
Yeah.
everybody. That's where you need to go to see these.
Yes.
And then I've got
That's
it. If
great.
you go to my YouTube channel and scroll it, I've got 300 videos or more. Went all the way back. I didn't scrub anything, so you can go all the way back and see me in 45 years old. And,
that's great.
And green.
When you were young.
Yeah, back in the good old days.
Oh, gosh.
Well,
Scott, we're running out of time, unfortunately. I feel like
this
90 minutes went in like just 2 seconds.
I know.
You're such a great guest. I'm so glad you're here with us and sharing all these adventures. And now, quickly, though, I know you have a support group for people who have had experiences. Yeah. They need some support. And obviously, you are a great pillar of strength for people that have had this happen. Where do they go to join your group or to be able to get this kind of support?
Well, I called it the Sasquatch Awareness Project. I have a Facebook group if you search for Sasquatch Awareness Project, and really, it's not a formal group, so to speak. It's just I offer people help. I'm not a professional. I'm not a mental health professional or anything like that. But I'm just try to answer people's questions. I try to give them facts about the Sasquatch and the other stuff that's out there. I try to help people with the PTSD. It's kind of like this. Once the DNA study was done, when we stopped doing the research, that's when the emails started coming. People would have an experience and they were trying to figure it out, and they Google Bigfoot. They'd see my name, and on my website I had my email, my Gmail address, and when they email and say, hey, I've had this experience and I don't know what to do, and yada yada. And that's kind of how it started. And then when Steve Ishdahl and me became friends, and he started his thing. But before COVID, we were actually going to work together because he was ready. He saw a need for it, and Dave Plotty saw a need, and we were trying to coalesce something, and then COVID, blew everything up. So it's kind of like we all had to do our own thing. So I'd already created the website with his, blessing, and started doing my thing, and then he finally ended up doing what he's doing now, which is reading all these encounters, and Dave's doing what he does, with Missing 411 and all that. So it's kind of like, while we're not working together, it's not a partnership or any of that. It's just I'm friends with him, he's friends with me. We all are working towards the same goal, just in our areas of expertise. And that's in my area of expertise. It's just I wrote this book, tried to write a short book. I didn't want it to be a heavy read, so I kept it around 145 pages. But I wanted to give concise, easy to digest information about what the Sasquatch is, and then about situations and what you can do from a practical standpoint and a spiritual. So if you're someone that's not so much into spiritual, I give you the practical. But if you're someone who's spiritually inclined, then I give you the spiritual solutions as well. And nothing's 100%, but it gives people the things that I've done. And I've helped other people with, and I've solicited people. If you've done something, if you've got Sasquatch coming on your property and they're coming up to your house, and and you've been able to keep them back from your house, whatever you've done. And actually, a reader actually sent one in that said, "Look, man, holiday lights." He said they won't come across them. He said he was having trouble with them, coming. He lived in a very rural area on a farm, and they would come and look in the windows and scare the children. And
oh, boy. Well, Scott, unfortunately, we have only a few seconds left. So, yes, but we're going to have you back. But there we go, everybody. That's where you need to go for support. And Scott has some fabulous books out there. Make sure you get them and read them. And, again, Scott, thank you so much. This has been a great evening with you.
You're very welcome. I've enjoyed it.
Very enlightening.
Come back. You can't ever.
Please. Yeah, really excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, everybody,
Cool.
we will be back next week with another great show. And until then, see you on the Blue Highway. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next week for another radio adventure with Supernatural.